Hello and welcome to the Dave and Bear podcast. My name's Sean and joining me as always is the one and only Dante Boff, Mr. Boff. Man, how are we?
Shawnee, I'm so good. It's been a minute. We're just having a little reminisce on how long it's been since we've seen each other. Since we've locked eyes over a laptop and a microphone.
And a beverage. This one's a bean juice coffee.
A hot beverage.
Yeah, and now we're sitting outside. This is the first podcast we're recording outside. So, yeah, I guess if you're listening, let us know how the audio sounds, because I know there's those people over there love playing in the garden, the kids.
And on a day like this, how could you not?
I know, and I know there's an owl that loves sitting up there until the AMs, but hopefully it adds a little bit of serenity to the podcast that I don't think it's missing, but
it's feeling pretty serene to me right now.
Yeah, it's honestly a beautiful part of the world. We were just talking about how I had a long-awaited beer on my own fucking pub table out the back of my house, but I think I've said beautiful part of the world to this little nook 3 times.
Holding your beer and whispering to yourself.
Yeah, and having dinner out here.
Wow.
Forget it, mate.
Maybe we should bring listeners in and post a little pic of the situation so that they can all appreciate where we are right now. And
we decided not to talk during the photo taking. But yeah, so I guess, let us know how the audio sounds. But I also think, regardless of what people say, I think we're going to keep recording out here. I think a 4-man weave will be perfect out here.
Wow, wouldn't it just?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it just?
But beautiful bit of timber. There's a bit of a story behind this. I was, when it arrived, and I was very worried. I bought this off the Facebook Marketplace. When it arrived, I was like, oh man, I hope they can fit through the door, because that door behind me is the same size as that door in the garage. Doesn't look it, but it is. And this table was 81 centimetres high, and that door is 80 centimetres wide, and I'm like, well, I've just done the maths here, that doesn't fit.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, and it was a cash job, and I'm like, oh, for A, is he going to rock up? B, is it going to fit? What am I going to do? Are they going to dismantle the table? What the hell happened? And then it was very stupid. You obviously just push the legs in first, and all of a sudden it's only as wide as one plank of wood. I was like, oh, thank goodness. Then I gave it a nice sand, and I went to Bunnings. I can't go to Bunnings without thinking of you, by the way, but I was like, g'day mate, where's the sandpaper? Just because putting on my bogan accent. And he's like, oh, just right behind you. I'm like, oh shit. Got the got the paper, sanded it medium grit, then sanded it fine grit, bit of oil, the cheapest oil I could find. And then my mate came over because he had stayed over on the weekend and he'd left his wallet. He came over, he's a chippy, and I'm like, Jack, would you look at this, right? I've just been doing some fucking manual labour for the first time in my life.
Look at my hands, they're all calloused.
Look at this. He's like, God, that's quite good. How much was that? And I'm like, you tell me how much it is. And this is what he said. The wood alone, and I said, oh my God, I'm repeating this story 7 times. The wood alone was what, Jack? He's like, I'd say maybe 300. And I'm like, what if I told you the whole thing was 350? And to get one of these at Bunnings is about $1,000.
So what you're telling me is that you're basically a chippy's dream.
Yeah.
And you working as a journalist in the sort of trade industry, say the trade sector. I'm sure if you wanted a late career change and you wanted to swing into being a man of the manual labour, a man of the tools, you would have connections. You would have someone willing to take you on as an apprentice.
I don't think so.
Hey, never say never.
Never say never.
I'm sitting at this table with skills like this. The carpentry industry could use you.
If anyone needs a dedicated sandpaperer. Well, we're here in this beautiful serene setting to talk about one of the more hotly contested podcasts of the year. This is the quarter season NBA awards. 4th year we're doing this, Mr. Boffer. But we're going to run through every major award. And did we get any silly awards? No, Executive of the Year is a real award. Every major award and what we think, who we think deserves it at the quarter point of the NBA season. I've written down the favourites, and the favourites are as of the 11th of the 12th, which is 5 days ago. I don't think much has changed. And I've also got some stats. So all the stats that we mentioned are as of 2 days ago. So, again, not much has changed. I think that's all the table setting we need to do. But when we run through the awards, you'll get how we're doing it. We'll get the stuff for listing. Boffa, any other stuff?
I think you've as usual laid out the particulars in a very straightforward and digestible way.
That's what we do here at the Deep 2. I will actually mention, with all the awards, I will mention our pre-season predictions, which can be found on thedeep2.com, where everyone from the 4-Man Weave just gave their predictions, and some of them haven't aged well.
Some of them have, though, including one of yours off the bat.
Off the bat, so we'll start off with the big one, the MVP. The current favourites in order are Nikola Jokic, Luka Doncic, Joel Embiid, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Jason Tatum. Your pre-season prediction was Devin Booker, and my pre-season prediction was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Maybe we'll talk for a couple of paragraphs, and then I'll go into the nerdy stats.
Talk for a couple of paragraphs. I just want to say, right off the top, this felt like going into it like one of the more even MVP seasons, projecting forward. Like, Jokic probably should have won last year. Will he get it again this year as a bit of a makeup award? Embiid obviously was a deserving winner. Giannis and Luka always right there. Tatum, is he going to take the step forward? But no one really stood head and shoulders out above anyone else for me. So I was thinking, what am I going to do here? And I thought, maybe I'll just be a little bit silly, a little bit funny about something that I actually did think was possible if the cards fell right. And I'm going to nominate Devin Booker. And then 3 games into the season, Devin Booker got a hamstring injury, and I was like, yeah, that's why.
He does that every year.
This happens all the time. That's why he plays 55 games every season.
Which now, to win these awards, you have to play 65.
You do have to play 65, which means Bradley Beal, you can't win, mate. I'm sorry.
Look, the Devin Booker shout isn't bad. Like, he is a guy who I could see winning an MVP, and when he is healthy, I think he has played at an MVP level. He's
played at an All-NBA level this season.
Yeah,
sure.
he's definitely when he comes back after an injury, he's coming back after an injury, and he doesn't look incredible. But yeah, it is just the injury thing, and the 65 game stuff is just. It's going to rule him out of All-NBA consideration potentially as well.
He's going to get to the end of his career, and it's going to be a legitimate thing that there was a 5-year stretch where he was the best 2 in the league. And he's going to come out of that with 2 All-Star appearances and 1 All-NBA appearance.
Yeah, because...
And that's going to be it, because he just plays 50 games every year.
Yeah, which is this has kind of got shades of, remember when you had to have a centre?
Yeah.
And it was DeAndre Jordan, first team All-NBA centre, 3 years. And it's maybe he was really good. It's no, they just had to pick a big man. Yeah. Kawhi was on the second team, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit like that. And also remember the division, if you won your division.
Yeah, you could win your division with 37 and 45.
Yeah. Alright, we'll go through the nerdy stats. So I've picked the nerdy stats, and I'll tell you who's first, second and third just to start shaping our discussion. Value over replacement player. First is Jokic, second is Shai, third is Embiid. Box plus minus, Jokic, Embiid, Shai. Win shares per 48, Shai, Embiid, Jokic. And for what it's worth, usage this year. Joel Embiid is winning, and then Luka, and then Giannis. I don't know if it is truly winning. And just for a little bit of context, James Harden's career high in usage in his Houston days was 40.1%. So just to contextualize that Joel Embiid 36.7 number. So just from hearing those nerdy stats, and also just from looking at the leaderboard, we're seeing 3 names: Jokic, Shai, and Embiid. Who do you want to start off with there?
Let's start off with the newcomer and start off with Shai.
My prediction at the start of the year, he has the storyline pick where it is the young up and coming team, Steph Curry's first MVP, and OKC are really separating themselves as a top 4 seed in the West. And he's just so fucking good. I mentioned it in a group chat yesterday, because the Kings beat the Thunder, and Darren Fox, All-NBA consideration for his season this year. He's an excellent point guard. Shai is shooting 8% better than Fox this season, which is a fucking huge number, when you think about it. Shai's averaging Where have we got this? Shea's averaging 36 and 6 with a league-leading 2.8 steals on 55, 34 and 92. And he's just an offense all unto himself, but he just happens to be coached well, which we'll talk about later. He's got a great ecosystem around him with just shooters, and it's just like, he's seen a lot of bullshit this season, and I might be saying that as a Golden State Warriors fan. But the team just everyone knows who they are, and they know that Shea is the guy who's going to be putting the ball in the basket, and they're just like, at some points they just step aside and say, can you do one of those really cool sort of step back mid-ranges? And he does, and it just goes in.
Yeah.
And there's something to that in an MVP discussion where can you just get your basket wherever the fuck, whenever you want. And yeah, so he's sort of got the young ascending case, and it's not even just that. He's leading a lot of these stats, and he's in the top 3 in a lot of these nerdy stats, and he's just looks good doing it. The team's winning, and if voter fatigue for the two big men happens, Shea's, I think, the first guy there to vote for.
Yeah, well, the fact that the team is winning is so important, and only enhances the narrative around him being the ascendant star who has taken that step into superstardom, and he is, by whatever way you want to look at it, like one of the 5 best scorers in the league. And that, the statistical resume that you've just outlined is pretty much ironclad first team All NBA. Like he's going to be the 2 guard on the All NBA first team this year. Absolutely no doubt about that. And if Thunder can continue this winning pace and push into the low 50s, mid 50s, like in a season as evenly distributed as this, where no team in either conference has really like run away with it, you getting yourself into an evenly contested top 4 seed where your team is there or thereabouts of the best record in the conference is probably going to be enough, and doing it with, I think it's fair to say, the least accomplished surrounding talent going into the season, at least. Maybe you would look at Embiid in Philly before Maxey really broke out, but at least Maxey had multiple really high-quality NBA seasons under his belt. Going in, you had no idea what you were getting from any of these guys.
Yeah.
Chet included, and Chet obviously has been fantastic, and we'll talk about him in the Rookie of the Year conversation, but the fact that there are so many guys going into this season who were complete unknowns, and Shea has been the one kind of knitting everything together on the court. I think that really stacks up when talking about something like this, which is an individual award, but it's whose shoulders can you stand on. And he's standing on some pretty tall shoulders right now with the way that all these young guys have played.
I did mention the records, and I actually just checked the records. Thanks, Jamie, for pulling that up. OKC were ahead of Denver for most of the week that I was writing these stats, but Denver's actually second in the West at the moment with a 17-9 record, and OKC's third with a 15-8. Obviously, fewer games played there, but that is worth mentioning, because one of the things I was going to say about Jokic is that he started off so strong, and they were like 9-2, and it was like, well, they're doing it again. And then Jamal went down, and in the past, Jamal's gone down, and the team's just been able to like weather the storm because they've had Monty Morris or Will Barton a couple of years ago, and they've had Bruce Brown. But now, KCP's out for a game or two with concussion protocol, and Jamal is back, but when Jamal wasn't back, it was a bit like, oh, that's a lot of Reggie Jackson, and they did lose quite a few games. Jokic's numbers is he's averaging a career high 28 with 13 rebounds, 10 assists on 54, 31, 78. I just don't see... we are predicting who we think should win, but in terms of who the people are going to vote for, I don't think the answer is Nikola Jokic. Just he's 1-2, and there's just such good cases for everyone else here. Joel Embiid, 33 points, 12 rebounds, and a career high 6.4 assists on 52, 33, and 88. As of a couple of days ago, Philly are second in point differential, second in offense, and 9th on defense, and they look good. It's Nick Nurse has done an excellent job at somehow keeping Joel Embiid being the guy who said, if I get double teamed, I want to shoot over him. He's still doing that, but he's also still using his gravity, which is just can't believe it's taken like 7 years to get here, but he's using his gravity to just open up the floor for other players. Tobias Harris is having a bit of a resurgent year. Kelly Oubre Jr. was before he got hit by a car. He's now back. He's played 3 games, which is crazy, by the way. He came back in a month.
Hit by an actual car, though. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, and the video of him walking back to his hotel room, did you see that? It was
after he'd been hit by the car?
Yeah, he like stumbled back to his apartment and then was just like, he recorded it and was like, call 911 or something, right?
He recorded it.
Yeah.
But he was telling other people to
call
call 911.
No, sorry, it was his like intercom, his like his doorbell recorded.
Yeah, like the Ring camera.
Yeah. Also, there's this funny guy on Twitter that was like, because just after he got hit by a car, there was just some catch-all stat where it was like PR, right?
Yeah.
And it was like, all these MVP guys, and then Kelly Oubre was like the 15th best player, right? Because he'd just been shooting so efficiently. And this Philly fan's like, well, of course we signed the 15th best player to a minimum, and he gets hit by a car. But yeah, just all these dudes are just excelling. And maybe that's more of a case for Nick Nurse, because I think a lot of voters, including us, we don't have an official vote, but we do say a little bit burnt by Joel Embiid just constantly underperforming in the playoffs. And then last year, obviously, his PR team was put to work as he like pushed for that final MVP, for the first MVP, and then just completely like fumbled the bag in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So. Look, I'll mention Jason Tatum's case. He should be the winningest team, but like Minnesota is, and it's like there's again maybe the award for Boston goes to Executive of the Year or Coach of the Year rather than Jason Tatum, because I just don't think he's as much of a complete player as all the other guys in this discussion, which is not a knock on him. He's a scorer who's a good defender, and he's a good rebounder, and he's a glue guy in passing the ball. But you're going against Jokic and Luka Doncic and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah, I don't think that the case on paper for Tatum is strong, and maybe would have been stronger 5 years ago. But when we're looking at all of these kind of transcendent talents, Tatum doesn't seem to quite stack up against the guys that we're talking about. I mean, Embiid, I think will suffer from what Giannis suffered from post his MVP years, where it's like, okay, we feel a bit silly for voting for you for MVP in the second round of the playoffs, and then in the second round of the playoffs you just shit the bed, and now we look like an idiot because it was a toss-up between you or then the player that goes on and actually gets it done. And Embiid, like Giannis's MVPs were like pretty ironclad. It was like, whoa, this is like the best big man defensive season with high offensive efficiency we've ever seen, or we've seen in the last 15 years. And then the next season it was like, whoa, you just are way better than you were last year. Okay, but Embiid, I mean, he ended up winning by quite a substantial margin over Jokic, but like that wasn't it was a close coin flip kind of race, so I don't think he has the capital necessarily to push through the fourth consecutive season where he's gone out in the first or second round.
He hasn't been to the conference finals. No. Alright, so in terms of giving a verdict, I'm going to stick with my preseason prediction of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and I will say that it's worth keeping an eye on Jokic potentially making this a title race / Jokic winning a third. What's your prediction?
I'm actually going to go with Jokic for the power of inertia.
Yeah, how so?
Well, I'm going to weigh his past accomplishments more heavily in terms of deciding who's actually like gonna win, not who I think has necessarily been the best player, but I'm not giving it to Embiid for aforementioned reasons, and also Philly are one of many Eastern Conference teams that have looked both good and bad, and I can't quite get there with Shai just yet.
I mean,
we're 23 games into Shai's MVP season, and if I have to be a little bit late to the party because I wanted to be extra cautious, then I can be a bit late to the party.
Two things.
It'll go late,
two things on that. It is completely fair enough giving Jokic an MVP after he just did everything he did in the playoffs and the finals and won a title.
And also he's like he's taking a more direct offensive approach this season, and he's scoring a lot more, he's shooting a lot more.
Mm.
His efficiency numbers are still crazy. I mean, not as good as they were last year, but he still is the number one offensive engine of any team in the NBA. Like, Embiid's averaging a career high in assists, Shea's averaging 30 points, but Jokic is still the guy.
Yeah.
The Nuggets are second in their conference, and if you were going to pick any team in the West to really make this conference their own the rest of the way, now that the Nuggets have their second best player back, you would probably pick the Nuggets. With apologies to my friends, the Minnesota Timberwolves and Tony Edwards, but you would be picking the Nuggets. So I think a little bit of what has happened in the first 25 games and a little bit of projection, what's going to happen in the next 25. Like I'll give to Jokic.
Also worth mentioning that Jokic's team has gotten worse, so maybe if you want to make the argument that his teammates are worse than other teammates on the grid, which is quite funny because they could have just re-signed Bruce Brown.
They could have just re-signed Bruce Brown.
Also, you're late to the party, I'm early to the party. When we were watching the World Cup, I messaged the group chat and said it was the pre-season for the World Cup, and I said I'm predicting Shea to win the MVP next year because he just looked amazing for Canada. I feel pretty fucking good about typing that. I've had some shit takes, and that's a pretty good one.
I'm just gonna, whilst we're here, I'm just gonna Google something. Paul George All NBA. Okay, he's a 6-time All NBA member. Has he ever made an All NBA first team? Do you think Paul George has ever made an All NBA first team? I don't think so either.
Because he's competing with LeBron and KD.
He has 2019. He's a one-time first team member and a 5-time third team member.
Is that the year KD missed with the foot injury?
No, that was 29. This was 2019.
And so what was his foot injury? Like 17, 18?
What, KD's foot injury? Which one?
The one,
not when he was
the one where in OKC. It would have been like fifth.
That would have been like 14, 15. Like the year after his MVP, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Russ took over.
That's interesting.
Is it?
Yeah.
Something like that. I think he was the 12-13 MVP.
Why are you doing this?
Oh, just because SCA is gonna Shea is gonna make All NBA first, and then he's gonna at the age of 24 have surpassed Paul George's career All NBA first team appearances.
Yeah. Okay, so we're just putting down Paul George.
Yeah. Well, no. I'm reflecting on what is proving itself to be a very lopsided transaction. You are putting down Paul George.
Transaction.
I am just reflecting on the fact that the Clippers gave up someone who actually has turned out to be the better player.
Yeah.
And 7 to 9 years of draft equity.
Yeah.
And Danilo Gallinari.
Yeah, for FWIW. Next award, Rookie of the Year. The favourites at the moment are Chet Holmgren, Victor Wembanyama. What?
It really falls off a cliff after this.
Jaime Jaquez Hanya. And Amen Thompson's brother. Asar. Season prediction. Remember on the day2.com, we said put in your predictions and don't include Wemby because it was such a runaway. I'm never going to write this again because we were talking about doing this in the Zion draft where we were like, hey, Rookie of the Year prediction, but don't pick Zion because that's obviously who's going to win it. Obviously, Ja won it. You said Chet Holmgren, and I think, I read your article last week and you were like, oh, this, even if it wasn't Wemby, you would say, hey, just keep an eye on Chet Holmgren because he looked really good in Summer League. I said Scoot Henderson, who shut the bed for a lot of the year, then wore goggles and then wore glasses and then has played well for the last 3 games.
23-10 against Utah.
Yeah, but I'd like to see what you can do against Utah.
FWIW.
But let's cut the crap here, Boff. It's between Vic and Chet.
Grady Dick not on this. On this list.
How crazy was that stat?
John Hollinger had the stat that Grady Dick has a 7 PER in the G League.
He's just
7.
I know he just had excellent vibes. How could it go wrong? By the way, if Toronto wanted a shooter, they should have drafted Jordan Hawkins.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, And he'll shoot.
But
he won't do anything else, but he'll shoot.
But there's every draft there's dudes that are just shooters, right? You know, like Buddy Hield and like Doug McDermott and stuff. And then it's like, you want to if you want a shooter, get the best shooter, and they literally just didn't.
Yeah.
All right, so the top two is between Vic and Chet. I'll run through all of their numbers as of a couple of days ago. Vic's averaging 18.8, Chet 17. Vic 10.6 rebounds, Chet 7.8. Vic V ick 2.6 assists, Chet 2.5, grim. Block percentage, Vic leading the league with an 8.2% block percentage, Chet 7.5, both excellent numbers. Field goal percentage, Victor 43, Chet 52. 3-point percentage, Vic 25, Chet 38. Vorp
we're in the weeds.
Vic 0.1, Chet 1. Near the top of the league. Box plus minus, Vic negative 1.2, Chet 4.4. Again, one of the higher numbers for centres. Win shares per 48, Vic 0.005, which is also because they've won 3 games. Chet 0.188. So all the counting stats Vic gets, all the percentage stats that are all about efficiency and being good at basketball, Chet wins. How are you deciphering this buffer?
I mean, in terms of making the direct comparison, it is literally just that one has a really defined, secure role in a flourishing ecosystem with good players around him who also know their roles, and the other doesn't. And it's pretty crazy the level of ineptitude and disorganization that the Spurs have been playing with all season. And I mean, you can look at it and say, oh, true, I guess like maybe Keldon Johnson is just going to be like an average NBA player, and Devin Vassell has kind of struggled a bit this season, and the rest of the Spurs are all either really young or questionably good at basketball. Maybe it's not surprising that Wemby has struggled, but the complete lack of, I guess, offensive system. Like Wemby hasn't been put in a position to succeed once this whole year.
Yeah.
And anytime he gets something easy, it's because he's created it himself. Where he'll get a dunk because he's blocked a shot and started a fast break. Whereas Chet is just nestled snugly into the OKC ecosystem, and offensively is just the piece that ties it all together. So I think in terms of this discussion, like Chet has been, Chet has been really, really good. But I mean, if you're talking about who's going to be better next season, I don't think it's a question. Don't think there's a real question about long-term upside that Wemby is going to be still what we thought he was going to be. But he just hasn't been able to transcend the limitations placed on him by his ecosystem. Yeah. So it's really just apples and oranges here. But in terms of assessing this award, like it's Chet so far in a runaway. It's not even a question. He has been so good offensively. Like the shooting, I think, is really incredible. And he's showing a high level of pick and roll intelligence with Shea and with J-Dub already. And defensively, he has been so much better than advertised. Yeah. He has just come in as like this fully fledged, like, young Embiid type. Oh, you're a rookie, you're 20 years old, but we're going to put you in and you're going to, anchor us and do it at a high level. Yeah. And it would be great if he could grab a rebound, because that is the one area of his game where he needs to improve, because he's actually, for his position and size, not very good at that. Like it's a shame that Vic has had to play the 4 next to bad centres, and it's a shame that they were running Jeremy Sohan instead of a point guard, and it looks like they are going to move Vic to the centre, and it's like, okay, all the experimenting is done, but we have to judge that for the award. And I agree, it is Chet, and also just Chet, the team that's third in the West, he's playing a pivotal role. Wemby, he's averaging a little bit more counting stats. You never see you never see rookies in this conversation who are playing well enough to be considered for Rookie of the Year who are actually playing on a good team.
Yeah.
It pretty much doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And yeah, the era of counting stats, I mean, the counting stats are so similar anyway that it's much of a muchness. But the era of counting stats meaning anything is over.
Yeah.
You know.
So we're both going with Chet, and I've written here, do you want to mention anyone else, or should we retain our listeners? I would like to mention Too Many Cameras, Tamani Kamara, who's playing like a good role for a bad team, but he looks like a good defensive player. He's hitting his shots. He's also like a bit of a motherfucker. Like whenever I watch him, he is like digging some elbows into the person who's defending, and he is like getting into a fight. And I think he's been like, you know, a couple of like fake NBA pushing contests. And it's like, that's cool. You're a rookie who's struggling to win, and it's pissing you off, and you're hitting your shots, and you're playing good defense. But like, who's coming third? I guess it's Asar.
I mean, I guess, but like,
Who cares?
don't look at Asar's stats too closely.
Yeah, like the NBA rookie ladder put Triple J as coming third, but like it's going to change from week to week.
Yeah, I mean, if you can nail down a rotation role with Miami, that's great.
Yeah.
As a rookie, awesome. But I mean, in terms of this conversation, it really just falls off a cliff. This you know, anyone like spots 3 through 5 on the all rookie first team and the all rookie second team will be largely indistinguishable.
Holy shit!
Seems like
the all rookie second team.
the difference between third and 10th is going to be quite minimal.
Will Brandon Pajemski make the second team?
Man, maybe. Maybe.
I've just, if Alessio's listening, we've just broken the rule where I've mentioned the Warriors.
Well, we've made it this far.
All right, let's move on to the Defensive Player of the Year. The favourites are, in this order, Rudy Gobert, Anthony Davis, Evan Mobley, Bam Adebayo, Brook Lopez. As of this morning, Evan Mobley is out for a couple of weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, something horrible. Also out for a couple of weeks with a face fracture, Darius Garland. So pouring out for the Cavaliers.
Pouring out for the Cavaliers. Pouring out for my fantasy team as well.
Yeah, you got Mobley, don't you?
I got Mobley. Mitchell Robinson's out for 2.5 months as well.
Yeah, but that's on you for drafting him. Also, the Athletic wrote an article where it's like, how are the Knicks going to recover with the Mitchell Robinson injury? And it's like,
Isaiah Einstein is literally on the team.
Don't worry. So your preseason prediction was Giannis Antetokounmpo. My preseason prediction was Nick Claxton, who started the season on the bench with an injury, and neither of these two teams that we predicted have been very good on defense. Top defenses as of the 13th of the 2nd is Minnesota, Houston, Orlando in that order, and I've bloody gone and made a lovely table. I think I'm just going to mention the stats and then just say who's winning. But out of all those favourites, Gobert, Mobley, AD, Bam and Brook, I'll just mention who's leading which stats. So block percentage, as we know, Victor Wembanyama is leading the league, but out of these actual DPOY contenders, Brook is leading. Defensive box plus minus, AD is leading these guys. Can you guess who's leading the league? Nikola Jokic. Defensive win shares, Rudy Gobert is first in the league with 1.8. And then getting into the cleaning the glass frequency and accuracy percentages. So AD is the best at deterring. AD is the best at protecting the rim. Gobert is the best at deterring shots at the rim. Evan Mobley the best at limiting opponents' effective field goal percentage. Mid-range accuracy, Evan Mobley wins there again. And mid-range frequency, in terms of I'm rewarding people for forcing more mid-ranges, Rudy Gobert is leading the league in forcing the most mid-ranges. I also have mentioned that I'm not including Jaren Jackson Jr. in any of these discussions because I feel like it was a hotly contested race last year and Memphis has fallen off a cliff this year for reasons maybe out of his control, but I just don't think he deserves to be in this discussion.
Right, your team is 6 and 13, so you're kind of out of the major awards discussions.
Yeah, I don't care if you got a block here and there. I've also written down vibes out of 10. So for each of these guys, I've awarded a vibe number. So Rudy Gobert sitting at around 2. Also, these vibes I think are like, you know, who deserves it? How do we feel about them on defense? Rudy Gobert sitting at about a 2.
I'm just going to immediately stop you. This is clearly not who deserves it. How do we feel about them on defense? It's clearly this is how you feel about them as an individual outside of everything. So you can go and tell all the listeners what you have Gobert as.
Gobert's around about a 2.
Yeah, okay.
Mobley's at an 8. AD's at a 6, Bam's at a 10, and Brooks at a 9.
I mean, this is just absolutely ludicrous, and I can't believe that for the second podcast in a row, you are putting me in a position of having to be a Gobert apologist, because that's the last thing that I want to do. But this is slanderous.
The reason I've given him a 2.
Yeah, it was because he touched the microphones when he had COVID, because he cried when he wasn't an All-Star. We know.
No, it's because in terms of the DPOY, Dante, I'm a mature man. I'm past this, right? I've moved on.
As of 3 weeks ago.
No, well, my player who choked him is suspended for a different reason. Yeah, Rudy Gobert, we've just seen him win DPOY and then not defend in the playoffs. Yeah, whereas he's Evan Mobley, Bam Adebayo, Brook Lopez, and AD have all proven, sans Mobley, that they can defend in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But I'm also going to trust Mobley to defend because he's proven that he can switch and he's proven he can be versatile and he plays with a 5, but he can also play the 5. So that's why I've given Gobert a 2. The vibes are, do we trust you to not fucking make us regret this 6 months from now? So, where do you want to go with this DPOY chat?
Do we want to pick? Do we want to case by case? Because I know, someone to me out of this is the clear.
I'll say
winner.
I've come into every single awards pod we've ever done together knowing a name. This is the very first time I'm going to let you talk me into your person because I don't know.
Well, you're not going to like it because my person is Rudy Gobert.
Okay, well I was leaning Mobley.
Yeah. Mobley is the most frustrating player for me in the NBA at the moment because defensively he is in the defensive player of the year conversation.
Yeah.
He is so good. It's crazy that someone in their third year is already just so good at everything on D. There's nothing that he can't do. And offensively, he is so bad. And I can't figure out whether it's because he doesn't have the skill set, doesn't have the mindset to say I'm going to look for my own shot, or because he's not in a situation where he can flourish, be that because he's playing next to Allen, or be that because Donnie Mitch is dominating the ball. But whatever it is, this bloke is just addicted to 13 points a game. It'd be 13, 11 and 4 blocks, and it's just give me 18. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Mobley is an extremely worthy DPOY candidate, and randomly, considering that they have just been so snake bitten with injury this year, I've actually just watched heaps of the Cavs.
Yeah,
and Mobley's awesome, so good. But Gobert is
he's doing the Gobert thing.
He's doing it, but he's, I think, even rejuvenated a little bit.
Well, he said that this is the first year in 2 years that his back's felt good.
Yeah.
So there's this, and the numbers back it up. He's back to doing what he did in his prime in Utah. He
is moving better, and he's covering more ground than he did in Utah, which, considering who's playing the 4 next to him, not exactly known for covering ground and moving particularly well on D. Gobert is just setting up a mid-range and in kind of semicircle of death, and you're not really getting much done in there against him. It's coming out to the perimeter a lot more. He's still recovering and showing back. It's a much more complete performance than the archetypal Gobert seasons where it's funnel, block, And I think the fact that they're playing so well, they're going to be factoring into the top 4 conversation at the end of the season. This is literally what not just a Gobert defensive player of the year season, but this is what a defensive player of the year season is made out of. And I think in a weird way, to approach it from a narrative perspective, people, particularly the American voters, who love an underdog story, they're gonna go for the rebound angle. They're gonna go for we thought this guy was done. We thought, did we get it wrong all these years that he was 4-time DPOY, and he's coming back and showing no, we were right. We're gonna reward this.
Yeah. So in the same vibes, I just can't get over the playoffs. If we both pick Gobert, Lucas is going to listen to this and we're going to get a message on a random Monday at lunchtime, and he's going to be like, You guys picked who for Defensive Player of the Year?
The thing with Lucas, though, is that if you're trying to, like, you're fighting a losing battle, he'll find something.
Yeah.
You'll be getting that message on a random Monday at lunchtime, regardless of what you say. So you may as well just say it.
I'm going to put Gobert as a close second. And I really want to pick Bam Adebayo. Even though
I'm sorry, but you can't.
I know I can't.
Because he's not going to hit the 65 games.
He's out for a bit.
He's been out for a long time.
But I'm also rewarding the past playoff run where, he was a defensive anchor in the playoffs.
Wasn't. Adam Silver doesn't care. Bam's played 16 games out of what's the Miami Heat record? I shall tell you. Out of 25.
No. Well, yeah. Well, so I'm judging where we are in the season.
He's sitting at a 60% games played ratio, which is not enough.
It's only going to get worse in the next couple of weeks.
You've got to be at over 75%.
For what it's worth, I judge games based on how much time Ja Morant has served in his suspension. So we're currently at the 23-game mark. AD played excellently in the in-season tournament final.
Didn't he just? He
was also going against one of the worst defensive teams, but actually one of the best offensive teams in NBA history.
I mean, he was going against Miles Turner, right?
Yeah, and he absolutely ate him.
Yeah.
Like, Miles Turner, after he got fouled out, walked past the bench, didn't high-five anyone, his arms were flopping, and he walked into the locker room to, I imagine, scream or throw his cricket bat at the wall, because that's what you do when you get out after an underwhelming performance.
Yeah. You put a crack down the middle of the grey nickels.
Look, Bam's not going to make it. I want to reward AD for maybe doing the resurgence thing, but he's not going to play 65. Like, what the fuck am I thinking? Mobley,
we are picking this based on the quarter poll, so
yeah, Minnesota's best defense by quite far. Gobert's doing what he does. I'm gonna write Gob for both of us, alright?
Wow, Lucas, get ready. Brooke, just to touch on Brook Lopez, I think the vibes around the Bucks are sufficiently weird that no one is gonna be in that consideration.
And your preseason prediction of Giannis as well. Yeah.
I mean, Giannis has just defensively looked a bit NQR, and I'm not sure what to make of it, because there was the whole thing like 5 games into the season where Adrian Griffin had installed a different defensive scheme to what Bud had been running the past 6 or 7 years, and then 5 games in, everyone was like, we don't like this, can we go back to the way it was before?
Because we're the best defense of the last 5 years. So I don't doubt that there would
be some on-the-fly reshuffling that would lead to some defensive struggles involved with that. But it's not like you were changing to a system that you'd never run before. You were changing back to the system you've been running for 7 years that you knew like the back of your hand. And I don't really know what to make of it, but I just know that no one from the Bucks is in consideration for anything really. And it's a testament to them and the talent that they have on that team that they're actually still 3rd in the East.
Yeah.
Like the vibes have been sufficiently weird to be noteworthy, and Dame hasn't really hit his stride yet, and they're still 3rd in the East.
And Dave mentioned that. He's like, everyone's like, the sky's falling, but like we're 15-8 or whatever.
Yeah, and also just, DPOY chat, but shout out to Giannis on 64 points. He could have had 70 if he could hit his free throws.
Well, he could have had 64 in the game ball.
What's better than 64 points?
So I sometimes wake up in a cold sweat, and I just get this audio file played back over in my head, where it was myself and Marco last year in the 3/4 NBA awards when you were in India, and I said to Marco, man, I think Brook deserves it, but I want to pick the up-and-coming player in Jaren Jackson, because I'm looking at this like a dynastic DPOY run. Like, this could be Triple J's first of a very long time, right? You just get an email from Marco in the Deep 2 Podcast Network, which is part of our newsletter. So if you could, if anyone would like to subscribe to the newsletter, you can do that on the deep2.com.
You should do that on the deep2.com.
Fuck, 10:59, huh?
You too could get an email for the newsletter.
But I wake up in cold sweats, because I remember saying that, like, man, Brook maybe deserves it, but I want to pick the young guy who might win 5 of these things, right? And now we're looking at it. Brooks, obviously another year older. He's got this, horrible defensive system with Adrian Griffin, and he might not win one for the rest of his life. And I kind of wish I gave it to him last year. Not that I have a vote, but it's like, I kind of wish I had said, look, I'm picking Brook this year. He's done it. But no, I picked Triple J. Got it right, but fuck.
You can't manufacture the dynasty. The dynasty just has to... It's either there or it's not.
Yeah. And now they're having a gap year. All right, let's take a break and then jump back into the most improved player.
This episode of The Deep 2 is presented by Gelateria Bico, the official gelato of The Deep 2. Gelateria Bico, handmade gelato in the heart of Brunswick.
The Jeff Van Gundy Tribute Show is your fortnightly dose of the lighter side of basketball, hosted by me, Marco.
And me, Lucas. We take a more laid-back approach, talking about the NBA, the WNBA, FIBA basketball, culture, whatever tickles our fancy or grinds our gears.
The show is filled with great guests, classic gags, and a healthy dose of tangents in honour of the great man himself.
The Jeff Van Gundy Tribute Show, fortnightly on the Deep 2 Podcast Network.
You know, loves just talking about the league, certain things like that.
All right, and we are back. Most improved player. Favourites at the moment are Tyrese Maxey, Alperen Sengun, Scotty Barnes, Tyrese Halliburton, and Cam Thomas. Pre-season prediction: Boffa had Tyrese Maxey, Sean had Caleb Martin, who's been on a bit of a tear in the past couple of days. All it took was the starting centre defensive anchor to go down for multiple weeks, and he can score 17 points with the best of them now. Now, we always have this discussion: are we picking player that goes from sort of to amazing, like amazing being maybe all-star like CJ McCollum? Are we picking a guy who was an all-star like Tyrese Halliburton who's gone to an all-NBA level? Or are we picking someone who, like, I guess there's no Jimmy Butlers here who average like 2 points and then average 17 points.
Yeah.
Maybe Cam Thomas
would be the closest to that. But I mean, he had multiple 40
Yeah.
point games last year. So
what are you thinking?
this is the most interesting award this year. Because there's no wrong answer. With the top four, like throw Cam Thomas out a little bit, but between Maxey, Sengun, Barnes, and Halliburton,
You can throw Barnes.
Barnes has been really good.
Yeah,
Barnes has been really good.
he's only going to get better when he's not playing with Siakam.
I think he's easily the fourth out of those four, but I think he deserves to be in that conversation.
I agree. Yeah.
Maxey, I mean, you know, everyone by this point will know what is going on. That Maxey will be.
You can make the case in your sleep.
Yeah, he's going to be an all-star. He's played well enough to be in contention for All-NBA. He's the Batman to Embiid's Robin on a top 4 seed, and he's done this from not a position of anonymity because, you know, he averaged like 17 points last season, and we knew that he was a really good third option. But he has just made that step up to being the primary ball handler on a elite team. An elite offensive team. Like the Sixers are a top 5 offense and, you know, thriving because of him. And then Sengun is just like, it's just fun with Sengun, right? It's like, this
Baby Jokic.
this guy that everyone was like, there's no way he can be good, but he's got a little something. He's now actually just got the keys to the car and has been unlocked a little bit, Baby Jokic. And then Halliburton, like, how can you not just love this guy and the way that he plays and the way that his team plays? It's just a nice, fun award, and whoever wins it will be really deserving.
That top 3 is great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna stick with my preseason prediction of Maxey, because I think, you know, when in doubt, the tiebreaker is team record, where there's a similar role.
And your preseason prediction, I think that's also a tiebreaker.
Yeah. I
Stick
mean,
with
don't fix what isn't broken, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, just fun. Like if Sengun actually is an all-star this season, so good. Your top 3 MIP candidates are going to actually be genuine all-stars. Not often that is the case.
I think Maxey's going to win because the case is just, it's also the fact that there was the James Harden trade. Like, Maxey came out and was like, I'm taking his role, and he did it, and it's sick. Like, I think Maxey will win, but I'm picking Sengun because he's having all those offensive jumps as we've seen, and you can read about them on thedeep2.com because Marco wrote an excellent article about the Houston Rockets. But Sengun's having a very, I guess, all-star case. He's having a good defensive year, and Houston's numbers have been muddled a little bit by defensive three-point luck. But Sengun's having some good rim protection numbers, and like he's really like read the Jokic playbook, where it's like, you're slower, but you can put in effort and you can defend the rim, right? And like never jumps.
The defensive 3-point luck, though, is such a fallacy in the way that it's just put out there as a statement.
Yeah.
Because it's not like a fait accompli that every team should shoot league average from 3 against you.
Yeah.
You might still be benefiting from defensive 3-point luck, but someone shooting 32.5% against you, teams shooting 32.5% against you, maybe there's a 2% buffer that is actual shooting luck and variance and whatever, but you can account for so much of your opponent's 3-point percentage field goal by the shots that you allow them to take and how tightly you're contesting them. And Houston are making people take contested above the break threes.
Yeah.
So the fact that people are shooting 33% against Houston is not like, oh, it's just luck. It's at least in part due to scheme and defensive effort.
I'm also saying that when it comes to Şengün's role, I don't think he impacts that much, and he is as impacted by that.
Certainly not on that end, but the fact that he is the back end, like it's all connected. The fact that he's behind them and that he's not actually the white centre rim protecting sieve that maybe he looked like he was going to be means that you can contest a little bit harder on the threes. You can play a little bit more close into someone's jersey on the perimeter.
Yeah.
So I don't think, just in the context of having this conversation about the Rockets, like you shouldn't qualify too hard on Şengün's role in them being good defense and Luck's role in them being good defense.
We'll also mention there's sort of like a sliding doors moment where they were like Houston were going to sign Brook Lopez, and that was their big thing. And then Brook Lopez said, "No, I want to stay in Milwaukee," and they upped their offer. And if Brook Lopez was there, then like Şengün's like maybe he's a candidate for 6 Man of the Year, or maybe he's just a good backup, right?
Playing 18 minutes a game.
Yeah, and at the 4 as well, which would make him look worse on defense because like what he does good is just put his hands up. Nice little sliding doors moment. And in the past, I've always pined for most improved being because we're on the phone. For most improved being the guy who's gone from All-Star to All-NBA, and that would usually be Tyrese Halliburton. But I think there is a good enough case for these other guys going into the All-Star conversation from non-All-Star.
Well, these, I mean, like, they might all just be
great choices.
They might all just be All-NBA.
Yeah.
Like, it's not outside the realms that Şengün sneaks into the third team as a third-team centre.
Yeah.
And I think right now you'd say Maxey and Halliburton are both odds-on to be on one of the teams.
Yeah.
So
Halliburton more than Maxey.
Halliburton is probably the first-team point guard, right?
Maxey is a guy who will make All-NBA because someone like Booker's not going to play 65 games.
Yeah.
That's the way he makes it on.
Yeah.
All right, Coach of the Year. Favourites at the moment, Mark Daigneault, Jamal Mosley, Chris Finch, Rick Carlisle, Ime Udoka and Nick Nurse. Your preseason prediction was Rick Carl, and then you stopped yourself as a joke because you always pick a pacer for something, and then you wrote Ime Udoka, and I wrote Mark Daigneault. Pretty funny that your joke might actually be like kind of right. He's fully like changed the way he coaches, and he's doing a great job with a team that's like quite bad on paper, I think.
Definitely quite bad on paper. Ime,
Marky D, Jamal, and Nick Nurse. I'll just run through the cases. Mark Daigneault. The vibes. He's the vibes team of the year. He's an out of timeout wizard, and he might win a playoff series with a young team. Jamal Mosley got a young team to defend at a really high level without having a solid defensive player of the year candidate on the roster. Also keeping the team defending, even though Wendell Carter Jr. went down early in the season, and Goga Bitadze, who was a free agent because no one wanted him, is their starting centre. Again, might win a playoff series. And Nick Nurse got Embiid to be good and pass the ball, got Tobias Harris to be good, and got Kelly Oubre to be good. Where do you want to go from here?
I mean, it's Mark Daigneault, right?
Yeah, it is.
This is one of those seasons where like everyone actually has a really good case. Like you could make you can make the case for Mobley. I think Nurse, to me, probably the case isn't quite as strong just because he's coming into an established team with an MVP level player. But Udoka, Carlisle, Finch, Mosley,
like second all time. Oh no, is he first all time in Minnesota Timberwolves coaching wins?
So fucking grim that that's the case. Those four like all have an awesome case, but it's still Marky D. Like he's taken a young team, he's fit it all together, taken a kaleidoscopic view and just fit it all together in this really beautiful, cohesive way.
Yeah.
It's Dagnall, I think, beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah. I'm happy to move on. Bit of a bummer, Jamal Mosley. Maybe next year's his year, because it looks quite sustainable.
It's crazy that they are as good as they are defensively, because there's a lot of guys playing heavy minutes on that team that aren't like great defenders. No one that you look at in isolation and think, oh, that's a great defender. Like maybe guards.
Maybe Suggs.
Suggs and Anthony are both really good defenders. Like Bankera and Franz are just like big,
tall,
long bodies, but neither of them are like in individual situations particularly good defensively. But they've just become so cohesive and well-oiled that they're able to play with Goga Batadze at the 5.
Yeah. And, I mean, also credit to him. Let's not put him down too much. I know I started it, but, he is doing a good job of defending the rim.
Of course.
He had like 6 blocks the other day. 6 Man of the Year. I've given no extra context to this award because, as we talked before the pod, fuck, man, who knows? The favourites at the moment are Austin Reeves because he plays for the Los Angeles Lakers, Tim Hardaway Jr., Emmanuel Quickley, Cole Anthony, and Malik Monk. Pre-season prediction: you picked Jonathan Kuminga. I picked Chris Paul. Those two aren't going to win the award. This is blank on the run sheet. What do we do here?
Reeves will win if he plays enough games from the bench because he has the last 6 or 7 games been moved to the bench in favour of D'Lo starting, and has played really well from the bench, despite playing pretty well from a starting position. Yeah. Reeves is the best player on this list of 5 that you've presented.
Yeah,
and if I think it just becomes a numbers game. If he gets enough starts from the bench, which what you have to play more games from the bench than you do from as a starter, I think is the criteria.
Yeah.
If that ends up being the case, which it's currently not for him, but if that does end up being the case, I think he will win the award just by virtue of being the best player from the bench.
And he looks quite comfortable coming off the bench. I'm surprised to see Tim Hardaway Jr. this high because it's on a team of creators and he's not a creator, he is just a recipient. And I'm going to agree with you with Reeves. I was going to say Malik Monk, but their cases are very similar, and Monk's numbers are just going to be worse than Austin Reeves, and he also doesn't play in the biggest media market.
To be honest, I hadn't even really looked up, paid much attention to what Tim Hardaway has been doing. Tim Hardaway is averaging 17 points on 14 shots. Shooting 42% from the field.
Yeah, it's not him. All right, look, I'm going to say Monk, ... probably Reeves, and I've written in Sam Reeves, and then you're going to say Reeves. Happy with that? The award is, Joe Ingles should have one of these things.
Yeah, but there was just that 10 years where it was just a small 2-guard winning every year, some of those years correlated to, the Lou Williams, Jamal Crawford years did correlate to years when they were the best bench players in the league. And some of it correlated to years where, because they had won so much, it was always going to be a small guard coming off the bench who's averaging 18 points a game, and they were the best at that without necessarily being the best bench player, which would have gone to your Ingles type.
Ginobili won a couple there as well.
Yeah,
more of a facilitator, not just a scorer.
Yeah, it's a weird one, and it's something that I think those two players aforementioned dominated for 10 years. And that player archetype dominated for 10 years. And now that they're both gone and that player archetype is less valuable than it has been, it feels like there's a bit of a vacuum here and no one's quite sure what this is supposed to look like.
Yeah, it's like Jordan Clarkson versus Tyler Hero. But I feel like we're having such nuanced discussions on every award, and you and I are just sick of this one.
For what it's worth, though, all of the top 5 favourites are guards.
Yeah.
So, whilst they're all different guards, probably with the exception of Monk and Hardaway, they very, very much fit the classic archetype. But quickly, Anthony and Reeves are much more defensive or all-round or facilitating than any of the past winning types.
Yeah.
But they are still all guys with the ball in their hands who were either starting or finishing plays.
Should we? Should the NBA get rid of this award? Because it was created to encourage and reward players for taking a lesser role in the system. And now it's sort of like that, because I was reading an article and that was like why they created it, to reward players who have a smaller role. But the fact that it is rewarding these guys who just have a bigger role while the best players are sitting, has it sort of like gone by the wayside? Should we rephrase it to like the best bench player, or should we rename the award? Should the league?
No, I don't think so, because I think that's the same thing.
Yeah.
Because your best bench player is going to be the bench player that's getting the most minutes.
Yeah.
Right? And it's the reason why Malik Monk comes off the bench isn't because he couldn't start on 10 teams, because he could. He's a starting caliber player on some NBA teams, but he comes off the bench because getting him going against reserves is a much more appealing prospect than getting him going against the team's best wing defenders.
And when Fox is what you want Fox to touch the ball.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just
I don't
playing
think
a bit
there's
of,
a problem.
I was playing DeAndre Ayton.
Yeah.
Devil's advocate.
Everyone needs a good DA. I don't think there's a problem with this award necessarily. I just think we're in a bit of a transitional period with it where no one's quite sure what it's supposed to look like.
All right, moving on to the final award, executive of the year, and all the other favourites I found off betting markets. There was no betting market for executive of the year, so I've just gone by Ben Golliver's pre-season article on who he thinks should win. This is obviously before the season started. He had James Jones, Phoenix, Brad Stevens, Boston, John Horst, Milwaukee, and Rob Pelinka with the Lakers. I've also sprinkled in Daryl Morey, Raphael Stone, and Tim Connolly. This is another one of those awards where I have a name, but I want to hear your case first, because I could be very easily swayed.
I mean, I don't have a name for this because I just don't really know how any of these names, probably bar two of them, are relevant. Like Tim Connolly can't win it because it's the executive of this year, not of last year.
Yeah.
The same with Brad Stevens.
Yeah.
Brad Stevens has essentially done nothing new. Actually, no, sorry, that's completely.
Do you know how far came up on the pod?
What am I talking about?
He did everything this year.
He did everything new. Yeah, I'm thinking.
That's the
I'm
name.
thinking this is your grandfather's Celtics. The same with Pelinka though. Like it's really, when you look at the totality of it, it's much of a muchness.
Well, he's extended Reeves.
But the moves for bringing Pelinka's guys in were either last year's off-season or at the trade deadline, so he hasn't done
Yeah, I mean, I might mention Pelinka if he does, like, thinking he will make a deadline move, like, moving on from... But, I mean, what are we doing here?
I mean, it's probably Morey or Stevens, right?
I've said Stevens. Daryl Morey has to do something with the assets that he got. He has to do something again. And I think if we do like a halfway season awards or a three-quarter season or the end of season, and he's traded for OG Anunoby and the team just looks perfect, right?
But how do you judge
right now?
But how can you judge Daryl Morey on anything other than his team winning, which they're doing at a higher level than they were last year?
Brad Stevens is winning as well.
No, I'm saying.
Well, yeah, no, that's true.
It's a Daryl comment, not a Brad comment.
Yeah, but I think like.
Crazy how 4 of these guys' first names are Brad, Rob, Daryl, and Tim. We pretend Raphael Stone's not in there.
Yeah, that is. Hey, white men unite, huh? Probably shouldn't say that on a podcast. Look, I think I'm saying Brad Stevens because I think he's put together an excellent team, and also like Drew Hart looks so fucking good.
Yeah.
I'm saying Brad Stevens, but if Daryl Morey can, because judging him for the year, he signed some good minimums, and then if you can turn James Harden into these picks and like some average players, and then flip that again for, I'll keep saying like OG Anunoby, right? Then we're going to look at this year as a totality and say, well, he went into the year with James Harden, who didn't want to play basketball, and he turned it into OG Anunoby, who wants to play basketball, right? Like that's that. And maybe it's Zach LaVine, maybe it's whatever the hell, right?
I hope not.
I hope not. It's really funny that Zach LaVine's got no trade market.
Yeah.
Like, he's got 4 more years and he can't touch the court until January. Pretty grim. But also, like, that's what the money's for. So I'm going to say Brad Stevens. What are you doing?
I think I'll stick with Daryl.
Right.
I think I'll stick with Daryl here. Brad Stevens would be a worthy winner because, I mean, like, KP has looked really good. It's looked a lot smoother than it might have. Like, I was pretty optimistic in the offseason that they would figure out a way to make it work on both ends of the court with KP specifically, but it's been a lot easier of a process than I would have imagined.
Yeah, me too.
So, I mean, that all is excellent for him. But I think, just the nuts and bolts of the Harden situation being, again, for the third time in the last 4 years, just the most toxic situation you can possibly imagine. So much toxicity and organisational challenge here. The bloke saying, I'm not playing, I'm not re-signing, you're a liar, trade me. That's about as bad as it can get. And the team is the team is fourth in the East and playing really well. Yeah. And Maxi's going to be an all-star and Embiid's in the MVP conversation, and he's now armed with that chest. So whether he does something with it or not at the trade deadline, like, I think he probably is my pick thus far.
Getting rid of Marcus Smart a year early, that's credit for that as well. Yeah. But I am also so surprised at how good the Zinger looks. Yeah. And just so weird that the Zinger is the first big man that Jaylen Brown's had chemistry with, and they've got an exceptional 2-man game, which is like, you can't credit Brad Stevens for finding out. Like, it's not like he went on 2K and both of their like personality types were comfortable or whatever the fuck, right? That's a weird one that I did. That wasn't on my bingo card. Like, having the Zinger be a perfect pairing with Jaylen Brown, who has learned how to dribble again. Whatever.
We'll see what happens come April, May, June.
I'll be swayed. I'll be swayed in the trade deadline, and that could be swayed for Rob Pelinka. Like, he made a good move to get rid of a self-created problem in Russell Westbrook, but can he turn Hachimura and just any dude making more than the minimum into something exceptional?
D'Lo.
Yeah. Can he? I don't know. Like, I don't. Yeah. We'll see. Raphael Stone, we knocked him quite hard and entering the year. He was maybe executive not of the year. Yeah,
he was. And it's, I mean, for all that it has worked, the team is still 500.
Are they?
Yeah.
Houston Rockets, 12-9.
12-9, man. It's better than the Phoenix Suns, I would suspect.
Phoenix Suns, 13-11.
13-11. God, that was anticlimactic. That whole like, hey, wait 23 games for the big three to play together and then lose.
Yeah, but like this is like the least anticipated big three because it's like, oh man.
Yeah, but you
fucking hate the Suns.
You get the luxury of the global perspective. I don't.
True.
For some unknown reason, I still care about this team, even though
it's. You go for it.
No, this team is just more and more unrecognisable.
Yeah.
And
seeing someone in 25.
My own motives for supporting the team are more and more unrecognisable to me.
Yeah, you know it's just Booker. Like,
it's just Booker. Yeah, it's literally like Kevin Durant, awesome player. I take the global perspective on Kevin Durant, just being an NBA fan and appreciating him. But I'm not like, whoa, he's on my team. Like, I love this guy.
Because he's done it so much. It's like,
this isn't my guy. Like, Beal's not my guy. And then the rest of them is like, well, you weren't here last year. You've been here for 20 games. You probably won't be here next year.
Yeah, and it's like Josh Okogie. It's like, you might, as a Phoenix fan, be like, I fucking love Josh Okogie, but now his minutes are getting split up with Keita Bates-Diop and Nas Little, and you're like, well, sort of the hard-nosed defender. Well, now his role's smaller, so it's not like, get 3 steals in a game. Like, that's sick.
It opens you up. It has opened me up to some existential questions on what is my fandom of this basketball team. Do I go for the badge? Do I go for the uniform? Or is there something more personal? Do I go for the team, the players? Is that set on the specific players, or is that the idea of the players wearing the uniform coming together? Which then leads you to the question, what is fandom?
I think it's the badge and the players that you've seen for a long time. So I think it's Booker and wanting your team to win. But like with KD, obviously, like, you know, drafting OKC, when he went to the Warriors, everyone was like, fuck you for going to the Warriors. And he really bought into the Warriors and was like, I love these players and I just want to be like on the best basketball team ever. And he won, so it's like, well, fans love him.
Yeah.
Then he went to Brooklyn and he's like, I'm doing the media thing, I'm in New York, like, tune into the boardroom. It's like, I don't know what the fuck that is, but you seem happy, man. Like, you're wearing a Goobalini now, like, that's awesome. And then that obviously disintegrated how it did. And then now it's like, okay, he's in Phoenix. He signed a 4-year contract with Brooklyn because he's like, I'm here, man. Everything exploded around him. He's like, okay, I kind of got to go because I want to win a title, and you happen to have the best offer. You being Phoenix, and it's a bit like he hasn't really had he hasn't like chosen this. He said this is my short list of teams, but he went there because he's like, this is unfortunate that I have to leave Brooklyn, and he loves Phoenix, I'm sure, but it's a bit like he's just here because James Harden and Kyrie Irving can't be trusted, right? And so that's why there's sort of maybe not that love. And it's like, I agree with how you're feeling, like how you feel about, like, you know, the existential crisis as a Phoenix fan. And there was this video by Thinking Basketball that talked about KD and Booker's like amazing two-man game and how they're just like driving and kicking back and forth. They both drive, kick, and they backpedal to the three-point line. And it's like, whoa, this is like, you know, this is like your Stockton and Malone, right? This might be your two-man game that you're like, fuck, I'm going to miss this basketball because these guys, they just keep attacking the defense for 20 seconds and then one of them gets a wide-open shot. And it's like, that's really, really cool. And then Beal comes into the mix, right? And it's like, oh, okay, maybe Beal can do it as well, but he's just not as good as those other two. And it's like, what would it be like if you just had really good role players instead of Beal? And then you can't ask that question because he's got a no-trade clause and he's owed $200 million for the years after this. And it's a bit like, fuck. You sort of had something with just KD and Booker. And maybe like use your mid-level to get like a Mike Conley type, right? And then it's like just KD and Booker going in and out from the three-point line. But the Beal thing really makes it a question.
And it has such jeopardy because you're one Booker hamstring or KD ankle away from the Bradley Beal Phoenix Suns for the next 3 years. Yeah. KD out for a whole season, Booker playing 35 games because of injury, and then it's just Beal.
And we've seen the Beal with fucking average role players.
We've seen it. Our friend Lucas lived it, and nothing about that experience made me want to live it.
Just before we wrap up, because I'm conscious that we're done with the fucking run sheet, and there's a chainsaw going on in the background. Did you see all the connections after Brooklyn? Like, you know, all the guys were like meeting up between Phoenix versus Brooklyn, being like, "Oh, good to see you again, man." There's obviously like the Booker seeing like the twins, Mikhail and Cam, but then there's Trendon Watford, who played with Nas Little and Yusuf Nurkic in Portland.
Yeah.
And then there's someone else. Drew Eubanks also had the Portland connection. There's someone else. There was someone who was in Yuta Watanabe played for Brooklyn last year. And there was one other minimum dude who played for Brooklyn last year.
So we're all sharing.
Yeah. Which is which I thought was like, oh my god, that's actually like a very connected team.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah.
Dante, I think that was an excellent podcast.
Yeah, me too, Shawnee. And it's been serene. Great to share it with you.
Mate, beautiful scenario.
Beautiful part of the world.
I'll speak to you tomorrow, but on the airwaves after Christmas.
After Christmas. Have a happy Christmas and a happy New Year.
You too.
You want to talk WNBA? Maybe some WNBL? Australian Opals chat? Heck, even dabble in some EuroLeague? Find the W Basketball Show on the Deep 2 Podcast Network.